The Black Widow, a name given to the female spider that kills her mate after mating. But what if I told you that there are human black widows, not for survival, but for greed, revenge, and pleasure? In 1990, in a small town called Weedsport, New York, there was a girl named Ashley Wallace. She was 11 years old, living with her family, her father Michael, her mother Stacey, and her little sister Bree. Even though she loved spending time with her father, a car mechanic, her bond with her mother was much stronger. She used to say, "Mom and I could sit for hours just talking about anything." In November 1990, Ashley had no idea that her parents' relationship was deeply troubled, nor that her mother was seriously considering divorce. Stacey even told one of her friends and got a lawyer's number to start the process. However, since the holidays were approaching, she decided to postpone it until the beginning of the new year. But Ashley started noticing changes in her mother. She became more irritable and aggressive. Ashley said, "It was like a role reversal. My dad became the patient one, while my mom was the one punishing me." Then, in December 1990, her father Michael suddenly fell ill. He constantly felt dizzy and spent most of his time in bed. When he went to the doctor, he described feeling perpetually drunk, even when he hadn't had a single drink. The doctor diagnosed him with an ear infection, gave him medication, and told him to rest. But the truth was that Michael had been poisoned. On Christmas Eve, he went to visit his mother for the holiday. His sister recalled, his face and hands were swollen. When I asked him what was wrong, he just said, "I must have caught a bad cold." Days passed, and Michael's condition worsened. On January 11, 2000, Ashley came home and found her father lying on the couch, where he had been spending most of his time in recent weeks. She called her mother and said, "I'm home." Then, she sat down to watch TV. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise. Her father raised his hand into the air, then let it fall. That was the last movement he ever made. Michael was rushed to the hospital, where doctors did everything they could to save him. But it was too late. The official cause of death, a heart attack. When asked if she wanted an autopsy, Stacey refused. Michael's sister, who was there at the time, watched as Stacey turned to her and said, "Michael never liked hospitals or surgeries. He wouldn't want an autopsy. He would just want us to live our lives and not cry over him. That way, he'd be at peace in his grave." Ashley remembers, "I didn't understand why my mom didn't cry for him, but she always said there was no need for anyone to see her sad. In the end, Michael died, and the truth about his death was buried with him. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Stacey killed him. And yes, she did. But I rushed to the ending because that's not the important part. The real horror is what happened next. This woman, even demons could learn from her." Now, Stacey was a widow, a mother of two, and had just inherited a $55,000 life insurance policy from her late husband. After renovating the house, she took her daughters on a trip to Disney World. She returned as the fun-loving mom that everyone was used to. But her daughters noticed something new. Stacey started talking to people online. She was always busy and no longer paid attention to them. In 2001, she met a man named David Castor. David lived a luxurious life in New York and owned a successful heating company. He was recently divorced when he met Stacey and quickly became attached to her. He saw her as a caring mother who looked after her daughters, and he admired that. But Ashley and Bree didn't like him. They couldn't accept anyone taking their father's place. Ashley recalls, "I didn't like him, even though he tried to bond with us. He told me, 'I don't want to replace your father.'" In 2003, 2 years after they met, David and Stacey got married, shocking everyone, especially since none of David's family was invited to the wedding. Stacey and her daughters moved into David's house, which was a significant upgrade in lifestyle for Stacey. At first, David and Stacey were happy, but her daughters were not. The house was always filled with tension, and the girls couldn't adjust to their new stepfather. But over time, they started to get used to him. When Ashley graduated, David looked so proud. She recalls, "If you had seen the way he looked at me, smiling, I felt like I was truly his daughter." Her relationship with him was improving, but suddenly, things between David and Stacey took a dark turn. They started arguing constantly. Then, in 2005, Stacey made a strange call to the police. She told them that David had locked himself in their bedroom since the previous night and that she was worried about him. She said, "At 5 a.m. on Sunday, we had a heated argument. He got angry, went into the room with a bottle of whiskey, and locked the door." The police asked if she thought he might harm himself. She replied, "On Friday, I told him I would take the girls and leave him. He told me, 'If you do that, you'll regret it.'" At first, the police didn't think much of it. Just because someone locks a door doesn't mean something is wrong. But then she added, "His father passed away recently, and he hasn't been the same since." That changed things. When the police arrived, they broke down the door and found David lying on the bed, with a glass containing a green liquid next to him. On the floor was an empty antifreeze bottle. The police ruled it as a suicide. It appeared David had ended his own life by drinking antifreeze. But one detective wasn't convinced. In the kitchen trash, he found a plastic syringe with traces of the same green liquid. He wondered, if David locked the door, how did this syringe end up in the kitchen trash? They took Stacey to the station for questioning. Meanwhile, she called Ashley and told her that David had died. Ashley was devastated. David had become a father figure to her, losing her second father in the same way. It was too much. No one knew that this wicked woman was behind everything. And this was only the beginning. The police couldn't formally accuse Stacey of anything yet, and she managed to escape suspicion, just like she did with Michael's death. But David's will raised even more questions. He had left everything, his house, his company, his cars, to Stacey. Nothing was left for his own son. With this new fortune, Stacey started spending more time with her daughters again, taking them on trips and bonding with them. But in 2006, a year after David's death, forensic tests on the green liquid found in the kitchen trash confirmed that it was antifreeze. Even more shocking was that it contained David's DNA. The glass found in the bedroom had 3 fingerprints on it, all belonging to Stacey. At this point, the police were certain that David had been murdered. But without a confession or a witness, they still couldn't charge Stacey. For 2 years, the case remained open until 2007. That year, investigators exhumed Michael Wallace's body for further testing. The results? Michael had also died from antifreeze poisoning. Stacey was now the prime suspect in 2 murders. The police brought her in for questioning again, hoping to make her slip up. During the interrogation, they asked her a simple question. In David's room, there were 2 glasses and some cranberry juice. Can you tell us which glass you poured the antifreeze into? Without thinking, Stacey responded, "When I poured the antifreeze." She paused. When I poured the juice." She had just given herself away. Realizing she had slipped up, she became defensive and refused to continue the interview. The police knew they had her cornered. They obtained a warrant to tap Stacey's phone lines, hoping to gather more evidence. But no one was prepared for what happened next. On September 14, 2007, the police monitoring Stacey's phone heard her making a call to 911. She was frantic. Her daughter, Ashley, had overdosed on medication. When officers arrived at the scene, Ashley was barely breathing. Next to her was an empty bottle of pills, a bottle of vodka, and a typed suicide note. The note read, "Mom, I love you so much. I'm sorry for everything. I couldn't handle how my father always yelled at you. I was the one who killed him. I also killed David. I poisoned them both with antifreeze." The note was 750 words long, typed, not handwritten. Even Ashley's name at the bottom was typed. But something was off. Ashley survived the overdose and was rushed to the hospital. When she woke up, her mother was there, along with the police. Stacey leaned in and whispered, "I'm sorry, sweetie. I love you." Then she walked out. That's when the police stepped in. They needed to know the truth. Ashley told them everything. She revealed that a few days before the overdose, police had come to her school to ask if she knew her father. Michael had died from antifreeze poisoning. Scared and confused, Ashley went home and told her mother about the questioning. Stacey reassured her, "Don't worry, honey. The police are just trying to trick you. Don't say anything to them." Later that night, Stacey suggested something unusual. "How about we have a drink together?" Ashley was surprised but excited that her mother was letting her drink alcohol with her. She drank one glass but immediately felt like passing out. The next day, Stacey did the same thing. But this time, Ashley refused, saying the taste was too strong. Stacey insisted, "Here, use this straw and sip it slowly." That was the last thing Ashley remembered before blacking out. If her younger sister Bree hadn't found her the next morning, barely breathing, she would have died. Stacey had tried to kill her own daughter and frame her for both murders, but she failed. The police arrested Stacey Castor while Ashley was still recovering in the hospital. In 2009, Stacey finally faced trial. For the first time in her life, Ashley had to confront her mother in court. She later said, "After everything she did, she looked at me like I was the one who disappointed her." The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was revealed that Stacey had also forged David's will to make herself the sole beneficiary. The jury found her guilty on all charges. Her sentence, 54 years in prison. But that wasn't the end of the story. Investigators received information suggesting Stacey might have also killed her own father, using the same method she used on Michael and David. Before they could dig deeper into that theory, Stacey was found dead in her prison cell in 2016. Her cause of death? A heart attack. This was the fate of the woman known as the Black Widow. But now, I have a question for you. How many more Black Widows are still out there, undiscovered? Tell me in the comments. Do you think there are other victims we don't know about yet? And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to support the channel.